For some reason, there's 3 of them. What you doing, Google?
Yes.
Oh, that's why. Okay. I see what it did.
Right. Windows Hello capable Microsoft webcam. I thought. That's good. Man. Oh, hey, Brad, is he there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How long are we anticipate being on this thing?
As my English teacher in like 7th grade would say, as long as a piece of string, Paul.
Okay. So to be a little more specific,
I don't know. We can do it.
I mean, I would like it to not be 3 hours long. So
no, probably like an hour. Do we run out of whatever?
I would, yeah. I mean, I don't mind it being longer than an hour, but I mean, I would like it to be less than 2 hours. Like if it goes, if we're hitting like the 90-minute mark, I think we need to pull the plug. Mehdi, it must be almost midnight for you, right?
Yep, it's gonna be midnight in 5 minutes.
See, I can do time math. Why can't I do time math?
So I should probably edit that to say, if you want to join the chat room, because there's people now watching, by the way. Let's see. If you want to join the chat room, click on the video and go to YouTube.
Can I nominate Brad to monitor the chat room?
0.0% of people are shocked by that statement.
Should have started drinking hours ago. What was I thinking?
Oh, I've got my drink right here. You can't see it. La, la, la. Hello, world. Did I hit update? There's actually probably some way to get the chat room embedded on.
Yeah.
Throughout.
So is it in that forum post now?
Yeah, it is. If you hit refresh, it should bring up the video.
Oh, it's nice.
See? And then I should be able to go to Paul, Mehdi, us, me.
Okay.
Look at us. Getting our money's worth out of this stream deck.
So this is kind of like what you do on Fridays, right? You're reading questions off of a forum
thread, effectively. Yep.
Yeah. All right, so we don't really. The Mehdi and I don't even have to stay then. I mean, you do this every week. No.
Yeah, effectively. Sean has joined. Let's see here.
Do you not eat cranberries?
Get the thread up on that screen. Wait for my furnace to turn off, because that's a thing. Oh, wow, there's 42 questions.
Yep. It's all right. Only 38 of them are directed directly at you.
Good. All right, let me shut this door, because I'm sure my kid will come barreling down here.
Well, that'd be fine.
Oh, you want to see what brilliant thing we got her for Christmas?
Actually, all I really want is for you to admit that those unicorn things were so for you, not for your daughter.
So can you see this?
Yeah, admit it. That was for you and your wife, not for the kid.
So there's 2 of them, which one's for me.
There it is.
So the brilliant part is that she rides these things in the house, which, let me tell you how much fun that is.
Brad, honest to God, what are you doing?
Had to put it back in the box.
You had to put it back in the box. Okay.
It ain't come here to feel tonight. It did come here to drink, though, because that's what we do. All right. Kumbaya. It's almost the 7 o'clock hour. This show is going to start right
We're on time.
Mahedi, that's a staple. I call when Paul and I podcast at 9. I call him at 8:57. We don't miss.
That's right. And he doesn't wait. If I'm not ready, it's like
No, it's
the intro starts.
just
In
like
fact,
this.
I think he prefers it when I'm not ready.
Exactly, just like this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AMA. We have a bunch of questions, and that is the wrong button. We also have a very special guest on. Hold on.
Oh, thank you for finally introducing me. Oh, you mean the other guy?
He's super special today because today I think he became a British citizen. Is that correct?
I became a British citizen, I think, like 2 weeks ago, but today I finally got the passport. So yeah,
Good, you're gonna need it, which is great.
such bad timing, but you know.
I
But
don't know.
for those who are not aware, Mahedi is the one who you see occasionally spamming the site, particularly around Apple events. He's quite good with that stuff. And he is finally, he asked a while ago, and we're like, we're not putting, no, I'm just kidding. And we finally got
I
him.
don't know if we're ready to talk to you.
Yeah, I don't know if we were either. And so it is late here. And depending on where you are in the world, I guess it could be early. Mahedi, it's late there, isn't it?
Yep, it's literally 12 a.m. today, so I'm on the 30th of December already.
It's already tomorrow for him. That's how late it is.
Is it any better than today?
Is it any closer to not being 2020?
Technically, yes. Technically, yes, he is. He's going to barrel into 2021 like way faster than the rest of us here. So.
This is the first time I have ever seen him in person, so to speak.
This is actually the first time I'm actually even talking to Paul.
Yeah.
Because I did speak to Brad a couple of times.
And it's weird because you've been here a couple of years, and now I realize I'm not sure I really like you that much. No, there was a chance I was going to come see you a couple of years ago. We were doing a home swap, and I think it was the one in Sweden, and we were talking about going to London for the, for our break thing, and it didn't work out, but.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Yes.
Wow. So for people who are tuning in, this is a much more casual thing than anything else. This is more of like your Twitch stream after the game has ended, whatever. Because
Right, how casual would you say this one is?
well, I'm currently having my favorite beer, which is Mad Tree Lift, a crisp golden ale brewed right here in Cincinnati. But Sean Park wants to know what our... Oh, God, that's from Stephen Rose. So Stephen Rose is trying to guess our OnlyFans account. So if you're not familiar with that, please don't Google it when your family's around or your boss or on a corporate computer. But thank you, Stephen, for making me choke on my own vomit. So I guess we'll just kick it off here. We'll see how many of these questions we get through, but this is a much more casual, just hang out. Appreciative of everybody who is subscribing to Threat Premium. We quite candidly couldn't do what it is that we do without your support, and so we figured we would just hang out here for a little bit since we can't do these things in person.
Can't go do it in your town or whatever, or at some Microsoft event, which would be nice.
Yeah, Paul and I have talked for years about like doing this on the road. Like we go to like city after city after city, just hanging out with subscribers and all that stuff.
How come we didn't do it this year, Brad? Do you remember?
Yeah. I don't know. Like it's something about being in a van with you and
during a pandemic.
during a pandemic,
like the start of a video game, like post-apocalyptic video game.
Yeah, and it's so we'll just kick this first one off here because I think it's a pretty good question that any of us could answer. It says, best book, and this comes from Chris Arthur. Best book, tech podcast you follow, or non-tech tech podcast you follow. So, Mehdi, why don't you go first? I guess you're the guest of honor.
Okay. In terms of best book, I don't really read that many books, unfortunately. But the one I was reading recently, I don't actually. Oh, yeah, it's called No Filters. It's about Instagram, and how Instagram came about, and that was really interesting. And in terms of podcasts, Marcus Brownlee has a really good podcast. The popular tech YouTuber, most people should know it. He has a really good tech website, covers most of the things, and he also has like some really exclusive guests on there every once in a while. So that's very cool to listen to.
Paul?
I mean, book is tough. I'm all over the map on books. If you haven't read it, you should read Showstoppers, the story of the creation of Windows NT.
Yeah,
that's tech related. I mean, but I read a lot of Stephen King. People know this. I post my audiobook stuff. I almost don't listen to any tech podcasts. I mean, most of the podcasts I listen to are not tech, although I do listen to Run As Radio and the .NET Rocks, right? Richard Campbell, and then Richard Campbell with Carl Franklin. But How Does This Get Made? They rip on bad movies. American Scandal is probably my favorite one. That's amazing. Those are the big ones, I guess.
Yep. Mine.
Mahadi
took mine, which was the No Filter. That's a pretty good book about Instagram. But if you need a book that is more kid friendly, I'm actually reading my daughter right now, The Girl Who Circumnavigated Fairyland, which is actually like the title makes it sound like it's like really like entry level stuff. It's actually really deep, and it's way above her like reading level, but she understands the story, and it's pretty well written. We're plowing through that, and then on the podcast side, David Faherty's golf podcast. So if you like golf, he has a good podcast, and it's he just does really good interviews, and it's David Faherty who has like that awesome European or UK style accent, and you can get
those. I don't know.
You try to do one night. Oh,
it's my strange way of bonding with people. Anyway,
just beating them down until they agree with the submission that you have laid upon them. Oh, let's see here. So this looks like a Stephen Rose question. SLR 1960
from.
What?
Where are you getting these from?
So some of them are from the forum threads. Some of them are from.
Make sure we go back and forth.
Okay. Well, how about this? You can see how much we were prepared. Just kidding. I will pick a question, which I already did. Now you guys can each pick a question and then go with it. How does that work?
That's fine.
Mahadi, do you have any idea what thread we're talking about?
Yep.
Good. Just making sure.
Okay. Let me try find one. How do I mute this? Wait. Let me try find one.
This is where I need that.
I'm trying to find a short one because some of these are really long, and I don't really want to explain all of this. Okay, do you guys have New Year resolutions, tech or otherwise?
So who's going first? You pick.
You can start, Brad.
Dang it. So New Year's resolutions.
$1.
Well, the biggest one, which is like really obvious, is I want to get back to the gym. Like I've pretty much avoided the gym until it's safe to go around the masses, and so that's like a big one that is out there. The other ones are just kind of like weird things around the house. Like I really want to learn to build some stuff, like quite literally a pergola. That's like I don't know if that's a New Year's resolution, but it's
handy.
Yeah. Like it's one of those things that I want, but it's more complicated. Someone's going to be like, "Hey, build a pergola. It's 4 posts." And I've got to figure out how to attach it to my house somehow. And I need like 18-foot runs without any like support posts, which is really it's more difficult.
Like when you have like a stage at a concert and it goes out into the audience, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it would have to like tuck out. It would have to come out from my soffits and then up to support the beat. Like it's pretty complex. And so I don't know if that's a New Year's resolution, but I want to learn more about just like general construction and like as a knowledge, right? So I can tinker around with that kind of stuff. And then, I don't know, get back to the gym. Like kind of getting back to normal life again is a resolution and also a goal and also a necessity. So what about you, Paul?
So literally resolutions is the title of the editorial I'm partially written for next Monday's premium newsletter. But the short version is, I am going to the gym, but I'm not doing great, I would say, eating or alcohol wise. So I'd like to kind of shore that up. And then you may recall, Brad, I don't really mention it this much, but about a year ago, I talked about maybe putting Ethernet.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think my son's home, for the break. And I've mentioned it to him that this is something we're going to do.
That way you can blame him when it screws up. Like, what'd you do that for?
Yeah. Right. Well, it can't be as bad as me. So
Your turn, Mehdi. What about you?
Yeah. I don't really have any New Year's resolutions, but one thing I want to do is go back to the gym. I was actually I recently got the Apple Watch SE, and I really got into it. And my friends already had Apple Watches, so I kind of got into it, and I was doing competitions and stuff. And then obviously the lockdown came back on, and then I stopped. And now I don't even use my Apple Watch at all.
Yeah.
So hopefully, go back to the gym once that opens up again.
Actually, you guys could both do Fitness Plus, right?
Yeah.
You should try that.
Yeah.
Right. In the meantime.
Yeah, I guess we could.
That's actually, it's funny you mentioned that because my wife and I were just looking at this. My wife and I both have Apple Watches and we share data or whatever fitness stuff. So we know when the other one's working out or whatever, and that's not that big of a deal. But we are just looking at the Apple subscription service, which I candidly think is going to destroy a bunch of businesses, like the small personal trainer stuff, because of how well it's going to integrate between the watches and your Apple TV.
And it's supposed to be really good.
Well, here's the other kicker. This is the perfect Apple scenario, and I know they thought of this. But so my wife likes to get up early and work out. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, you could get AirPods and connect them directly to the Apple TV and then work out, and then you don't have to use the TV speakers, so it's even quieter.
Right.
It's
she's
the perfect.
Yeah, that's too complicated. I'm just going to blast it through the speakers.
Yep, that is an option.
So Paul, it is your turn. Actually,
turn.
here, you guys pick questions from the thread, and I'll try to pick questions from the chat room.
That's fine. Well, I'll just go to the beginning because I think this is kind of an interesting question for everybody. I don't know how to say this name. M. McFur, I guess. Any chance, or what do we think about a second generation Surface Duo in 2021? And what do you think about the timing and specs for a Surface Studio 3? Brad?
Oh, well, you could have gone
You
first.
look unprepared.
So Surface Studio 3 exists, but I don't know when they're shipping it. I was initially told it was going to be a little bit later than what they had predicted, or what I had understood initially. So the thing is, these things all exist. It's just, when is Microsoft going to shove them out the door? I was just talking with somebody on Twitter. I think it was Zach. I've honestly been a little disappointed with the Duo because it came out, right? And it was this new thing. And I was really hoping that we were going to see some super aggressive update cadence from Microsoft, software updates, apps being updated. And we've gotten one, maybe two updates. TikTok now supports the dual display. But they haven't even communicated when Android 11's coming yet. And so, I don't know.
Deeply flawed. What do you think the possibility is?
I don't think
a Duo 2 in 1 year.
So I was trying to think of what it was initially, the initial release cadence. I think the Duo 2 is going to be a slower update cycle potentially than people want.
Yeah, because it's not a phone, as they say, right? So it doesn't have to come out every year.
Right. And Microsoft has already proven time and time again, they don't push a product out because it's been a year. Look at the Surface Book, look at the Surface Studio.
I don't think they've ever pushed out anything in a year. Well, maybe since the first couple or whatever, but
yeah.
What happened to the Surface Neo, the Windows 10 one?
Good
yeah. So while you were gone, Mehdi, a couple things happened.
Your sabbatical.
Yeah. No, they delayed it. So they repurposed Windows 10X to be single screen first. Neo is obviously a dual screen device, so it's not officially canceled, but they did take it off the site, and maybe we'll see.
So Mehdi, do you have any? I don't want to steamroll you on that question before I dive in.
To be honest, I don't even know why they did the Surface Duo. I think foldable Phones
I agree.
are very overrated.
Yep.
Unless Microsoft just wants to keep doing the enterprise customers, which I guess that's what they're trying to do with the Surface line anyway. But especially with phones, I don't see why anyone would buy the Surface Duo when there's like Galaxy Notes and so many other good business focused phones, over like the Surface Duo, because obviously it's not a well-built phone as of yet. And the software is very buggy from all the reviews that I saw. So yeah, I don't see any
Zach
reason
said
why
today it's gotten
anyone would buy
buggier.
that. Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that on Twitter.
Did you guys see the report? I can't remember the company that put it out, but of phones activated on Christmas in the U.S.,
Yeah.
9 of the top 10 were iPhones, and the number 10 was like an LG like K30. It's like an $89 phone on
Oh, that's
Amazon.
amazing. I didn't see what the 10th one was. Yeah.
So,
Oh, welcome to the United States.
our next question comes from Tyler in the chat room, and this is a Reddit meme. And he said, so what would be harder to fight? 100 Brad-sized Thurrots or
Wait, what?
1 Thurrot-sized Brad?
I don't even
It comes
understand
from the age-old question of what's harder to kill, 100 duck-sized horses or 1 duck-sized horse?
this. Wow. So, what were the two choices? 100.
100 of you-sized Brads.
100 of me, but your size.
Yes. No.
That's not much of a difference.
There's 100 of Paul bodies,
Mm-hmm.
but they're Brad.
No,
Or 1 Brad-sized body that's Paul.
I haven't had that much to drink, and I'm having a lot of trouble with this.
Yes, officer. It's
Like
this,
AB.
like this.
What are you talking about? I don't know. I would say that 100 of either one of us is going to be bad. Whatever the size is. I don't know how to answer this question. I'm sorry.
Maddie, do you have an opinion on?
Could you weigh in on this
Yes.
important
On this-
debate?
I think we have to pull up Photoshop and edit you guys side by side and see whichever is bigger and wider, and
Well, Brad's
do some
taller,
maths.
but I am bigger.
Yes. I have youthfuler knees at this point.
That's true. His knees are absolutely in better shape than mine. I sound like popcorn when I go up the stairs.
God. Mahedi, I think it's your turn to find a question.
Oh, okay. Okay, can you guys see a future without x86? How dominant can the ARM architecture become with Apple and NVIDIA involved? Is the performance versus power metric something that the power/gamer user would be ever drawn to?
Who's going first? You got to pick, Mahedi. Or you can go first.
Paul can go first. I'll just take turns.
Like
you
that
guys.
dollar back. No, so yeah, I mean, I could see it. I've talked a lot this year about how I think Intel's in a lot of trouble, and I think this ARM architecture has legs. I think it's going to potentially, become big even in computers. So, we'll see. But the one thing I just won't rule out with Intel is they've kind of had their back to the wall a couple times in the past. One of the big ones was 64-bit, where they ended up having to adopt the AMD architecture, which is what we use today, x64. And then the other one was early on with mobility with computers. They bought an Israeli company, and they created the core processors we're still using today. So I could picture Intel has already kind of dabbled in like these multi-core designs where it's efficiency cores and performance cores, and I could picture them going further down that path or even adopting ARM in some way. And AMD, of course, could do the same. So, we'll see. But I could see it. I'm not going to prophesize that it's absolutely going to happen. Yes.
Yeah, I tend to agree. My personal kind of opinion, there's so much dependent on Microsoft actually getting Windows on ARM to a place that actually doesn't suck. And it's like people can just pick up a laptop and they don't even know and or care what's underneath. Like
that's pretty. All of a sudden, that's closer than it was.
yeah,
I mean, this 64-bit thing I think is a big deal. Performance is a problem, but it's a solvable problem.
yeah.
Like I actually feel better about Windows 10 on ARM right now than I did 2 months ago than I did, 2 years ago.
Assuming that they get to that point, I think ARM will eventually eat a lot of Intel and AMD's lunch, but I think it'll be a while, very long time before x86 is sort of a thing that just doesn't exist if we ever get to that point. Because you got to think about like games that have all been compiled with x86 in mind, and then if you have to run them through an emulation layer, you're not going to get the performance. So gamers aren't going to adopt ARM for a long time. I mean, look at the Xbox and PlayStation consoles; they're not ARM. So I don't know.
Stupid.
What do you think, Mehedi? Although you have some knowledge. And
yeah, some insider knowledge, one might say.
Yeah, knowledge that I can't really use, but I'll just keep that in the back of my head. In terms of, I think with Apple, doing so much with Apple Silicon, obviously, and like their marketing is obviously very top notch. Something Microsoft I don't think can ever beat. So in terms of like getting consumers involved in the ARM world, even though they don't really mention ARM directly on any of the marketing material. It's just Apple Silicon, and M1. So in terms of that, I think Apple pushing like the marketing agenda and like getting so many people actually interested in it, because Windows on ARM existed for like 2 years before Apple Silicon came out, and no one really cared about Windows on ARM. Like look at Adobe with Photoshop and apps like that. No one really cared to build the apps for ARM machines. And now, as soon as Apple came out, 2 weeks later, we have all these apps already running on Apple Silicon. So I think like with Apple being so involved, and like I don't think Apple will continue to push like the Intel machines as much as they do with like the Silicon ones. So if Apple keeps doing that way, I don't think I do think like ARM will continue to dominate, But as Brad said, with stuff like servers and games, that will obviously take a long time before x86 goes away.
So one thing that Jared points out in the chat room that is a big catalyst or wrench into this is that NVIDIA bought ARM. So
right,
what's that going to do to the market?
Well, they've agreed to continue licensing it the way that ARM has, right?
Oh, sure. Of course they're going to say that until they get right.
And just like Google has pledged not to use your Fitbit data for advertising.
Yeah, or do no evil. I mean,
that's why I get all these emails. They're like, "Hey, fatty, it looks like you need to lose some weight."
So I think you're up next, Paul, with the.
Oh God, I'm so unready.
You had one, John.
Let's see. Kip, our buddy Kip, says is finding it hard to see Windows 10X as anything more than a Chromebook killer play, and then would be destined for the same fate as RT and S mode. Am I missing something? Is 10X the beginning of a long-term play for the future of Windows, or just yet another skunk work project that's now too big to fail? I guess so. Yeah, so what do we think about Windows 10X? Obviously, it's evolved. And it still isn't out, but there are rumors that we could be finding out about the first 10X devices, I guess, as soon as CES in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they've signed off on what will be the equivalent of the first shipping build, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
How do you feel about them doing this without anyone testing it? No, I mean, seriously. Like, no, not that us testing it has solved the problems of Windows 10 or anything, but I mean, I feel like feedback would be crucial at this point.
Yeah, well, so I don't disagree, but I also think it's too late.
Yeah.
I mean, if let's just pretend that Mehedi picked this up and he's like, oh, that really sucks, you should do this. And more than likely that might be some sort of substantial change, and they're not just going to go back and spin the wheel. Like, they've been working on this for too long, and there's probably a lot of pressure to get it out the door, which, let's just hope it's not like Cyberpunk when it comes out the door.
It's more like Halo Infinite. So there's also the rumors that we've heard that the first version won't be Win32 compatible, will be aimed at businesses solely. I guess we'll call them commercial customers solely. Mm-hmm. And then a future version, maybe this time next year, or I guess after that, whenever, is the one that would be aimed at consumers and would include Win32 container support, right?
Yeah, it's I don't know. Like part of me just wants to dump all over this. Like I really do. Like I want to look and be like, look, you guys screwed up. You moved the finish line like 6 times.
Yeah.
You don't really have a clear vision, and that's a problem. But then the other part of me is thinking that Panos came in roughly, we'll just say a year, 8-9 months ago, and hopefully defined like an actual vision or roadmap for this thing that makes sense, and that's why they had to like claw back. And
the delay, such as that we found out about, the public announcement about it occurred right when he took over.
Yeah,
that kind of suggested he came in and said, "Yeah, this isn't ready."
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Mahedi?
Yeah, I just want the Windows 10X design on Windows 10. That's all I could care about. Like,
I don't see why they couldn't have it as an option, right? Like you let you choose, maybe.
That's the only thing I care about in Windows 10X. I just want that design. I just want that on like the main. Windows 10
like a simple UI.
Yeah, just that.
So that brings up an interesting question. We like listening to what you just said, Mahedi. Like, do they even need a Windows 10X? Like, if all we want is the UI,
right?
They don't.
Well, hold on. So Windows 10X was originally envisioned, right? Aside from being dual screen, was Intel specific, right? From day one, I've looked at this and thought, this should be on ARM devices, right? Don't worry about the Windows Win32 compatibility stuff. This thing might make more sense on a real device, like a pure tablet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever. I mean, obviously they're doing the Android thing with Duo. This was Neo would have been 10X, right? That was the point, right? 10X.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like lightweight UIs make sense everywhere, at least as an option, like Mahedi said. I mean, I'd love to see that on Windows. I would choose that on a laptop, Yeah.
Even. Interesting. I'm just trying to think so the other challenge, at least for me in my simple little brain, is you have effectively 3 competing things going on, and they overlap, right? You have just standard Windows 10, which is what most people are running today. You have Windows 10X, which there's a lot of unknowns about that. And then you also have Windows 10 on ARM. These are like 3 semi-different paths going forward. Now, 10X might run on ARM.
S mode.
In S mode,
right, which is another weird diversion.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know. Look, I think, as Kip pointed out in his question, I mean, consumers have resoundingly rejected things that are Windows that don't run Windows apps.
Yeah.
So far. So, I mean, that's a problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, and like the other part of me too, like I would mourn the loss of the ability to build a custom Windows PC. Like, I've already been thinking about how, like, I want to get my daughter on a path eventually. Like, she loves Legos, like most kids do, but then the natural transition is to Minecraft. And then when she's old enough, like, I want to like actually build a computer, like, right? Like, order the parts, build the thing. Like, this is where you can play Minecraft on.
I mean, you could do that with her right now with like a Raspberry Pi type thing.
Yeah, but she's not into Minecraft yet, but that's kind of by design.
I see. Well, but I mean, as far as like a little maker project, I mean, there's some fun stuff you can do aside from just building the Pi itself. I mean, there's all those little hardware project type things, which I think could be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, there's things along the path, but the worry of like, say, going to ARM or something like that is like, will we lose that ability to go to PC Part Picker and like, spec out your dream machine, hit a couple buttons, and all the parts show up, and then you spend an evening building.
You can see the problem on the Apple Silicon side because they integrate everything into this one chip. There are reports of people who like format the drive during setup or something, and now they can't. They have to send it back to Apple. I mean, this is a really locked down ecosystem. Yeah, I mean, I think the heart of the PC has been this kind of Wild West approach, but I feel like these things are going to coexist for a long time, assuming that they even happen.
So next question comes from Tyler, and he says, why has Microsoft been so slow to roll out xCloud streaming to platforms other than Android? I find it absurd that I can't use xCloud on my Ultrabook.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. I mean, we know it's coming, not that helps. The other weird one was, is it console remote play?
Mm-hmm.
With the new consoles does not work on Windows 10 PCs.
Yeah.
And one of the key scenarios there is you have like a Surface Pro, right? Classic, with an Xbox controller, and you're upstairs in your bedroom, and the Xbox is downstairs, and you can remote play to it. And you can on an Xbox One, but you can't on a Series X or S. So, okay, but the question is why?
Right.
I think it's timing. It was a busy year, right? A busy year that was interrupted by a pandemic. They had the consoles getting launched was job one, obviously. Getting xCloud launched, I think, was important as well. But Android was the one that was just furthest along, and they were like, "Look, this will give us some milestones we can hit next year, where Xbox has announcements over a period of time." I'm just guessing, but that seems the lot. I agree. They should have had it. It's silly that Windows was not,
You got any opinions over there, Mr. British citizen?
Not really, but I just want to
Calling for the
ask: Are you guys just getting the Xbox Series S/X this year, or are you thinking of getting the PlayStation as well?
So I probably won't buy a PlayStation, not because it's not a good console, but the people that I play like online gaming with are all on an Xbox. And I mean, the game I play primarily is Call of Duty, which is probably, honestly, I think they're still getting exclusive content on PlayStation, so it's probably even a better.
They get it first.
Get it first or whatever. But the people I've been playing like 10 plus years with are all on Xbox, so it's not. That's just where I'm going to end up.
So I'm in the same boat, but I bought a PS3 and a PS4. I never did get a PS4 Pro, and I always kind of figure, like I'd review it or something. I mean, it's not worth doing now. There was so much money to be spent this past holiday season, unfortunately, because of all the stuff that was happening. It's possible I'll get one next year. I don't, just to kind of evaluate it, but I'm not going PlayStation or anything like that. For basically the same reason. Someone hopping on a unicorn.
My dog just splatted on the wood floor. It's the noise that I think I just heard. His little legs and just kind of goes. So, I don't know, Mehdi, do you have any console?
I have the Switch now. I had the Xbox One S, I think, and I ended up selling that before the new ones came out. I actually sold it for a really good price. I had that console for like 4 years. I bought it for £350 and then sold it after 4 years for £210. So yeah, I think that was a very good deal on my side. So yeah, I was very happy with that. But right now I just have a Nintendo Switch.
I want to get a Switch.
Yeah, it's very fun. I first bought it for Animal Crossing, and then I ended up buying lots of random cheap games, and it's quite fun.
Yeah, Animal Crossing has been a massive hit for Microsoft, for Nintendo.
I bet if we could have traveled this year, I bet it would have gotten a Switch by now.
Yeah, see, that's like what I was thinking. Like the back of the plane for you've got a cross-country flight.
Yeah. I mean, I almost pulled the trigger on a Switch many times. I could picture doing that.
Yeah, I might actually end up getting the PlayStation 5.
Trade.
Same reason as you guys.
Trade.
Just that all my friends are on PlayStation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I might have to. And I really like the things they're doing on the controller.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Microsoft just didn't care about the controller this year. They just, I think, what was
Mehdi, but let me help you with that. It's because it was perfect.
Right.
Mehdi, I don't know what you're talking about. They added a share button.
Yeah, thank you. And also, I would say the thing that makes the new PlayStation controller so good is it's more like the Xbox controller.
It is. So, you're up on question, Mehdi.
Yeah, okay, I got an interesting one. 2 questions from someone, Bryson, I think. First question is, I'm looking to learn how to program and code as a New Year's resolution. Any suggestions on a language to start with, or any good online courses / resources to learn from?
Why don't you go first, Mehdi? Because this is like a...
Sure.
You know a couple things about
Mehdi,
this.
if you were a young guy, I don't know, say living in London, perhaps, going to school, I mean, what would you study?
Yeah, he said he wants to code once and run everywhere. To be honest, that's like web, JavaScript. JavaScript is the way to go. In terms of JavaScript, you should probably start off with vanilla JavaScript, obviously, and then progress with like React.js, mainly Next.js. They're doing really cool stuff with Next. And yeah, I think JavaScript is the way to go because web apps are literally everywhere. You could build progressive web apps to make it look like more phone apps. So yeah, JavaScript for me. Or like if you just want to learn like the basic syntax, Python would be a good way to start.
That's what you took it away from me. I was going to take it. I don't want to interrupt. You keep going at all.
But yeah, Python or JavaScript, I think.
So I'll take it a slightly different, more business focused route. There's two paths that I would potentially look at. One, Python, like Mehedi mentioned, is a really good place to start for a couple of reasons. One, if you can figure out and understand the syntax, it's really good with R, which R is a very popular program for modeling, especially like big data world. Like I cut my teeth on that in business school, was modeling in R. The other fun place to learn, like if you're truly just learning and starting from the beginning, is learn how to program macros in Excel. You'd be surprised at how quickly you will become the power person in the office if you can write effectively macros, which, let's be honest, are just kind of like scripting in Excel to do certain tasks. Those are both really, like, quote unquote, easy entry points into trying to understanding how to get past like a GUI type interface for programming. Palm?
Well, I'm going to back up what Mehedi said because I actually, since early this year, been kind of struggling about where to go next with the programming project stuff I'm working on. I looked at Flutter for a while, which I think is incredible and is very interesting, but it's also very foreign. And I've decided, in fact, I've started writing an article about this. It's probably going to be called something like I Don't Know JS, which is like a rip on that book, You Don't Know JS. Pure JavaScript is the way to go. Web apps run everywhere. The capabilities are incredible. JavaScript, honestly, it's a ridiculous language in many ways, but it's also gotten very powerful over the years. And of course, you can do the TypeScript thing which is just a type-safe version of JavaScript, essentially, if you want to do that too. But yeah, I would, and I am literally starting with JavaScript. So as far as like resources, I mean, there's a million of them. I watch JavaScript tutorials on YouTube, Udemy, Udacity, et cetera, lots of good free stuff. I'm actually doing a nano-degree program now on Udacity for intermediate JavaScript, which is very difficult, and I'm not doing well, but I don't want to come here to cry right now. But anyway, I'm working on it and working through it. But I'd start in those places, yeah, for sure, in JavaScript. Definitely.
The other fun place you can start too, if this is probably for somebody, and I don't know if we have anybody listening who's in high school, if you have a TI, a Texas Instrument calculator, I believe the programming language on that is effectively BASIC. That's where I truly learned, is because I learned how to write. First off, like you learn how to write like your math scripts effectively, or equations in, so that you can try to do your homework easier. But the first like quote unquote program that I wrote was a fake reset prompt. So before we would take math tests, they used to come around and look at your calculator and then make you go through the screen to reset the memory. So you couldn't keep those formulas programmed in there. And so the first thing I learned how to write was a fake program that would run that would make it look like it reset. And all it was just a couple display screens. And then, I had all my stuff still in there.
That's funny. As far as JavaScript goes, by the way, one of the really neat things about it is, well, first of all, Visual Studio Code's free and there's a live server plugin, and you get all this that you can do. It's super easy. But even with just a web browser, F12 developer tools, there's a console. You can do interactive JavaScript right there, right in the browser. You don't need anything.
Yeah, you just want to learn to change things on a web page.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and you can probably literally even write an app and deploy it within like an hour.
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
it's so easy. It's crazy how easy it is nowadays.
I bet there are entire classes about JavaScript that just use the F12 tools. Like you just install Chrome and that's all you need.
Calculator Gate is what? Oh, you can't.
Calculator Gate. I mean, I could have got the first Delphi program I wrote was something called Visual FDisk. FDisk was an old DOS tool for formatting the disk. But it was a joke tool like yours. And the point of it was, are you sure you want to format C? And he'd be like, no. And it's like, now formatting C. and it would just do like, it would look exactly like the real dialogue, So we come from similar backgrounds.
Paul, are you next on the question?
Yeah, probably. Let's see. Yeah, okay. JH Radio says, what are your opinions about Microsoft making their own ARM chips? Assuming they can get x86 compatibility going and performance issues fixed. I mean, what do you think about Microsoft doing this on their own? And with the understanding that they're already partnering with Qualcomm, I mean, do you see them going down that path? I guess for PCs specifically, right? I think we kind of assume they're going to be doing this in the data center.
Can they do it without Qualcomm?
Yeah. I mean, anyone could license ARM, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, Windows 10 on ARM as we know it today technically is really Windows 10 on Qualcomm or on Snapdragon, and it would probably be a simple matter to make it work on other ARM variants. But I mean, is there a benefit to Microsoft doing this themselves?
I don't think so, personally.
Yeah.
Could they and will they, I think, are two very diverse questions. Could they? Absolutely. To your point, anybody can go license it. All it takes is a couple bucks, and I have a team, and you can start building the stuff. But does it make sense for them
right.
to
These are two very different questions.
I mean, they're better off like having NVIDIA and Qualcomm both building chips potentially for a Windows 10 ARM PC than they are themselves.
Right.
Way better off. Because the thing is like people look at the Apple stuff and yes, it is all great. But even if Microsoft built their own chip, they're not going to get the same integration that Apple is currently building on because one, they've been doing this for how many years now? Decade plus. They've completely rebuilt their OS to take full advantage of it. And they also have different efficiencies built in because just by the very nature of what Mac OS is, it's not a PC, it's not an OS I can go put on any machine you want. It's very custom tailored to their own hardware. And so Microsoft will never build, at least not publicly, an OS like that. It's just
what about Microsoft partners, right? This is their whole approach.
Yep.
Apple tends to go it alone. They partner only when they have to, and they try to kind of cut back on that where they can. If Microsoft was going to do this, presumably they would license it to PC makers.
Yeah.
Would that make sense?
I don't know. Vincent points out in the chat room that ARM is not the only RISC chip out there, so there could go different routes if they really wanted. I mean, they could really go off the walls if they
RISC-V or whatever they call it. RISC-V.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you think, Mahedi?
I was wondering, what if, would they be interested in making it for like the cloud business in a few years' time?
Yeah. That's the big. I think they are. I think data centers everywhere are going to just go ARM. It's just too obvious.
Yeah, because that's the only way it makes sense for me, for Microsoft making their own ARM chips. Because right now, the partnership with Qualcomm is working out well in terms of the actual hardware. The only place where they have to catch up on with Apple is, I think, the software.
I don't see Microsoft doing what Apple did, ultimately.
I
just don't think it benefits them as much.
Yeah, plus it also depends on how feasible it is for them to actually pull that off the way Apple did.
The big problem is, we saw it with Windows 10 and ARM, first couple of gen devices, great battery life, terrible performance, especially in emulation. And then they start changing the chips, 8CX and the SQ1, SQ2, whatever. Battery life goes down, performance goes up, but it's still not great. And I think if they get it to the point where performance is exactly where you want it, the battery life is just going to be what we already get on Intel. So why do we do? Why do we go through this?
Next question from the chat room is from Vincent, and he says, "What movies are you looking forward to see this year?" And considering there's 2 days left in the year, I assume it means next year, but this year or anything else. I'll go real quick with the one we're going to be watching probably Thursday or Friday of this week is the new one from Pixar, Soul. So It's supposed to be really good.
Yeah, that is very, very good. I think that was the thing that made buying Disney Plus worth it for me, because everything else was very boring on Disney Plus. So yeah, you should definitely watch it.
Okay,
I-
but looking past the next 2 days, what what about next year? What do we know about movies next year?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at a list right now to see what's coming out.
Yeah,
The only one
Warner
I can-
Brothers announced a bunch of their stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because we know it's going to be. So we know there's a Matrix 4 coming out.
That's the one I'm looking for.
Which I'm-
Assuming
you know,
it's
obviously-
good, obviously.
There's the Dune movie.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. Oh, the James Bond movie,
When is
right?
the new
That
Batman
actually looks
coming
pretty
out?
incredible.
Oh, I know what I'm looking forward to as well. Top Gun. The next Top Gun should be coming out.
So, okay.
It was originally supposed to come out in June, and then they delayed it till I think December. But I'm guessing it didn't come out, obviously, because I
Right.
don't want
Right.
Top
The-
Gun 2.
There's a new Minions coming out. There's a new Boss Baby, and
What site are you
Space
looking
Jam
on?
2.
Are you on Nickelodeon.com? What are you doing? Space Jam. Oh, the Space Jam with like LeBron
Yeah.
James.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah,
okay.
but I think A Quiet Place 2 is coming out. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, I was thinking the new Batman would be coming out next year, but it's not.
Top Gun 2 is now
It's
July
not.
2nd. So
When is it?
July 2nd.
July 2nd. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we got HBO Max so we could watch that Wonder Woman movie on Christmas. And I got to tell you, let me save you from some pain. Yikes! It is terrible, and there are a lot of really good people in it. You know, it's well made, not worth your time.
Apparently,
Yeah,
apparently Stephen Rose is very much looking forward to Boss Baby.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
I tried to watch the new Wonder Woman last night. I
Yeah.
gave up after 15 minutes.
Oh, it's terrible. The whole thing is terrible. Listen, as long as you're telling yourself the truth, everything will be fine.
Like, I kinda wanna watch
the
it
moral
now just-
message is something you would teach to a 5-year-old. Like, it's ridiculous.
I want to watch it for the memes, but not for like the actual.
But here's one. Here's a meme from Wonder Woman 84. This is a movie that takes place in the 80s. There's all these 80s references in it and stuff. There is no 80s music in this movie anywhere.
No Van Halen or anything.
There's nothing. No Duran Duran, no Thompson Twins. No, well, I'm trying to think of 80s bands here. It's awful. Awful. It's a missed opportunity. I guess once they went streaming, they were like, we can't afford the songs anymore. So,
So they cut them all out.
yeah, they cut them all out. Anyhow.
Oh, so there's the chat. The chat room is just ridiculous. Rotten Avatar sequels, just all sorts of commentary about Wonder-
Avatar, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there should be some Avatar movies at some point.
Yeah. I wonder, doesn't Disney, isn't that a Disney thing?
Avatar?
Yeah.
I think it is.
Doesn't
Yeah,
Is it?
I'm pretty sure I saw it on Disney Plus. Let me see.
Disney Avatar. Well,
feel like-
considering there's an Avatar ride.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
It is on Disney Plus.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Who's next? I think Mahedi?
Okay. Yeah. Sure. I'll go. Okay. This question is directed to you guys. Do you think Microsoft will be able to have Halo Infinity be the game we all want to be by next fall?
I think it's going to be really good. I really do. Right? And they'll look back. We'll look back and say, "Oh, it was worth the wait." You know, blah blah blah. It's not hard to outdo what they showed in August at
Right.
that event. It was so terrible.
They've backed themselves into a corner. Like,
Yeah.
they can't release it unless it's good, because you can't delay a game for a year and then put out something that's bad. And I think
Duke Nukem Forever disagrees with that assertion.
I stand corrected. You can do it, but I mean
What if it
they've
was delayed
tossed.
7 years, Brad?
I mean they've put hundreds of millions of dollars into this. Hundreds
This is
of
a
millions.
movie that could have a TV series attached to it.
Yeah.
That had dozens of advertisers lined up for this past holiday season. This is big, you know. But then again, it's like movie studios put out like the Justice League movie that was terrible.
Yeah.
Wonder Woman, terrible. I think what happened with the delay and then not to mention the Cyberpunk thing. I think it's going to come out and I think it's going to be in great shape.
I hope that your enthusiasm is well. See, the thing is like even reviews are going to be more critical,
Right.
because they're going to be like, this game got an extra year of development.
Yeah, you're a second wave game now. It's not, yeah.
You're not a launch title, so.
Come on, like that Spider-Man game that came out on the PS5 got huge reviews. It's literally the same game that was already in the PS4 with some extra stuff in it. This is a legit new game.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good.
What about you, Mahead? Are you going to buy and play it on your PlayStation 5? You trade it?
You trade.
I have no idea what this game is, and I don't wish to find out.
Okay. Can we make his third a little smaller?
Yeah, just like just contract it. I don't have that.
Just like over the course of the show, it just gets a little small.
These are features. Paul, actually, I think you're next.
Well, you already asked the Halo one. That's it. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Well, this is kind of related to a bunch of stuff that we've been talking about. Vladimir asks about cloud gaming and cloud computing. How long will it take for game streaming to surpass gaming through hardware, consoles, and PCs? Will productivity applications go a similar path, like we see with that cloud PC initiative thing that Microsoft's doing? And these are all interrelated. They sound like completely different things. But do you think the move to ARM and to lower power PCs in general is also pushed by the fact that ARM devices will be much better than x86 devices as thin clients, right? So this is all about cloud streaming. So cloud streaming across the board, cloud streaming gaming, cloud streaming productivity. And, 10X, cloud PC could solve that problem at Win32 compatibility, right? I think I'll just answer it real quick. My take on this. I think cloud gaming is going to take over for consoles. I think it slots into right where consoles are. Great experience, simple setup, press a button and go. But it enhances on what you get with a console because it's anywhere you want to be, right? As long as you have your controller with you, you can, or you don't even need a touch device. But it could be that plane scenario we were talking about with the Switch. Like the reason people choose consoles today is because they're simple, and you just gun and go. And cloud gaming or cloud streaming does that, but it also makes it available anywhere you are, which I think is huge. So. As far as when, I don't know, but I do think this is the future for gaming, for sure.
What about you, Matt? Have you ever even tried any of the cloud stuff yet?
I think I tried xCloud when they had the iOS beta. I think a while ago. That worked okay. There wasn't anything impressive on there, but I think. Obviously it is the future, but in terms of I'm just thinking in terms of like the networking and things like that, and like the limitations of the internet in like most countries, that might be a problem for so many people. From like going full on cloud gaming, but if it's like for now like it is like an alternative and like secondary thing for now I think it's fine. But a few years down the line, unless they like completely sort out like all the networking issues, I don't see why anyone would use that as their primary gaming machine, especially like the hardcore gamers,
So let me ask you, so I'm looking at some numbers here, which will be interesting. Let me ask you this. Do you think 15% of people on their mobile device would try cloud gaming? Just 15% of mobile gamers?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
So
suggesting that's bigger than the market for console gamers, perhaps?
So being generous, let's say that there were 200 million traditional Now I'm excluding the Nintendo Switch from this. Let's say that there were 200 million, and I'm getting that number from roughly somewhere around 125 million PlayStation 4 sold, which probably isn't too far off the mark, and maybe 75 million Xbox Ones, which might be a little high, but somewhere around there. So we're about 200 million.
200 is a good number.
according to the stats that I was able to dig up really quickly, in 2020 there was expected to be 1.36 billion mobile gamers on phones. So if 15% of them roughly tried cloud gaming or streaming or whatever like that, that would surpass how many people are playing on consoles.
The other thing is you got to remember, like, to the average consumer, I'm not sure they're even thinking about this as detailed as we are, right?
Yeah.
Apple Arcade is a thing where you probably, well, you do. You download the games to your phone, of course.
Mm-hmm.
This is the way we do things now. But the way we used to do things on a phone is we used to sync stuff from a computer, and then eventually everything went to the phone. Like, eventually, this will just be like an option for people. And it will just be like an app that has hundreds of games they can play, and they won't be thinking that they're streaming them. I mean, I realize in different places that's not going to fly. Western Europe, United States, Australia, lots of Asia, et cetera, that's going to be fine. But I mean, people who can't stream games today aren't buying consoles either.
Yeah.
I think there's a place for it. Today, and I think it's just going to grow. There's only a matter of time before game streaming takes over a console by usage share.
Yep. Yeah. I think your next question, Paul, is that right?
No, I think that was mine, wasn't it?
Or was it?
The last one.
Or is it Mahedi? I don't know. Is
yeah,
it me?
I can go with mine. Okay, so what is the process you go through to obtain free hardware for companies to test?
The process.
Throughout the year, what % of hardware do you actually purchase, and all these purchases a tax write-off?
Okay. Actually, I'm going to handle this one first, if you don't mind, because I want to talk about how Brad does it. Brad is an inveterate beggar. Brad will harangue people until he gets what he needs.
Yeah.
He's good at it. I envy it. It's smart. But on a more serious note, I mean, look, if I can get hardware from a company for review, I will do so. There are some companies I happen not to have much of a relationship or any relationship with, like Apple. So if I want to review Apple hardware, I have to buy it. And the way it depends on the device type. I always will have a Mac, and I'll always have an iPhone. And I use an iPad. I just use an iPad, so that's my thing. I mean, that's what I use.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, I don't do this too often, but I will. I'll buy something, and then I'll return it. I'll review it and I'll return it. I think a lot of the tech blogs you see on or the vlogs or whatever you see on YouTube, a lot of those guys, that's exactly what they do with every single device they get. They buy it, they review it, and they return it.
Yeah,
I don't do that much, but I do it when I have to. It's
a real easy way to get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul's right. I'm pretty good at harassing people. Like, when it comes time to
No, it's a skill. I'm not. And
you got to be persistent. Like, for example, like a Surface Book 3. A lot of the reviews, actually, I went through a phase. I turned down a lot of stuff, like a ton of stuff, because I'm really bored of like reviewing cell phones. Like it doesn't. I have no desire to do it. I have very little desire to honestly review like laptops. It's just like I do the Surface stuff only because I genuinely like the Surface stuff, and they'll send it to me. But HP would reach out for the longest time, be like, "Hey, do you want to review X?" I'm like, "No, like they're all the same Intel chips, they're all the same displays, they're all whatever." The one thing I have started to get back into a little bit is somewhat on the Xbox side, just because. Paul does a great job with the phones and the laptops, and I don't want to duplicate that or even go down that route.
Don't worry about that. But anyway, go on.
No, and I don't worry about it. It's just more of people. When you get into this business, like the first couple reviews you do are awesome. Like it's like, oh my god, somebody sent me a brand new piece of hardware.
Oh my god, I know. Everyone's like, I made it.
Yeah, like this is it. And then you get the 15th of that same thing, and you get it. Like people will.
This is something no one is going to relate to. Well, you guys might, but I mean, there's also a responsibility to it. So there are companies, and I don't want to call out companies, but I mean, there are companies that contact me with, "Do you want to review this? Do you want to review this?" And it's like, no, I can't even keep up with the reviews I'm doing. I've got too many. You can't see it, and I'm not going to show it to you. But behind me, there's a box with PC, and I haven't even opened the box yet. Like. I'm too far behind. But the problem is these things kind of stack up, and then eventually the company will come back and be like, hey, you've got like 13 of our computers. Can we get those back?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, of course you can have them back. They're yours. But I mean, it's the act of having to box them and put them and ship. It's a lot of work. Like it almost isn't worth it, you know?
Yeah.
And I know, but you guys out there are like, oh my God, I'd give anything, you know, for Lenovo or Dell or HP or whoever to send me these things. And it's like, I hear you, but it's a responsibility, Joe.
Yeah. Like the couple things that I have actually gone out and asked for, like there's that Razer Kishi, which is, these things aren't super expensive, but just bolts onto your phone, allows xCloud gaming better. I've also got another one coming from that will do it the same thing, but on iOS. And then I've put in a request to Audeze, I think is how you pronounce it. They build like a really high-end Xbox headset. And they said they'll send me one of those. And I just don't request a lot of things because, as Paul pointed out, like it's a time sink, suck to review a product properly. And then what people don't realize is like they'll rail on Paul. I read some of the comments like, "Oh, you were too particular on the keyboard" or something crazy like that. But after you've touched 10 laptops, you instantly notice like, you know, what keyboard sucks.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the person I think was asking how do they get into this? Mm-hmm. Was that the question? I mean, I guess what I would say, we kind of touched on it right up front. I mean, the way to get into it is to buy a couple, review them, and return them. And if this works, whether you're doing it on a blog or on a video thing on YouTube or whatever, eventually you'll start getting contacted by companies.
Yep.
And it may not be HP and Dell and Lenovo. It might be some kind like a company that like sources Chinese parts to make like a trying to think of something like a portable display or a gaming mouse or some whatever it is. And like a lot of these things I kind of say no to at this point, but say yes. You know, and you know, if you're good at it, if it's something that works out for you, it will kind of feed on itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's and Mehedi has earned the right too. He will probably absolutely agree with this. Tyler's chatting in the classroom in the chat room that says, "I'm thinking about my daughter's stuff." This is one of those things that I 100% believe Paul and Brad saying, and it is work and more work than most people would know, but it's also 100% a job I enjoy. It's just impossible to get into. Well, it took me probably 3 years of writing, like genuinely like 3 years before I got my first product to review. You know, we at Neowin, I hired a lot of people to write. At Petri, we hire a lot of freelancers to write. And what I tell people time and time again, it's really easy to write one blog post. It's really hard to write 100. And if you're right? And you won't get your first review product until you write 150. And so like if you start a blog because you want to get free stuff, you're starting it for the wrong reason and you'll never make it.
Exactly. And if you're one of those guys who shows up at some site because you get a review product and maybe let you keep it, like, and that's how you get paid, it's like, you might want to rethink your priorities a little bit. Like that's not a good way to go. It's funny. I have a similar take on that phrase you just used, which is, it's really easy to start a blog or a podcast.
It's like $10 to start a blog. 10,
really easy
$15.
to start one. The trick is to keep it going.
Yeah.
You know,
it's really really tough.
Anyone, you know.
Well, and that's the challenge that we as a publication face, right? Because anybody can. It's like $10 to get a domain, and you can go get a WordPressing host for $5. Yeah. Granted, you're not going to have the best performance, but you can be up and running with your own blog for $15. And so it's how do you try to, you know, differentiate or keep things flowing. And I know people just log into the site and see a post, but like a post on a Saturday means Paul was working on a Saturday or a Sunday. And so it's a lot of dedication.
Yeah, right. I mean, I guess. I mean, but yeah, it has to be something you want to do. Right. Mm-hmm. If you love what you do, it's not, I mean, it's still work, but it gives you a purpose.
The only time I hate doing it is when I have to cover all the CES posts.
Oh God.
And there's like 200 different PCs that look exactly the same.
Speaking of which, Mehedi, I get a bunch of emails from various companies. Should I just forward those to you, or how's that going to work?
I already told you I have January exams.
So one of the interesting ones, I don't think I'm breaking any embargoes on this, that I agreed to was OtterBox. The OtterBox, they're getting into the mobile gaming stuff. And they reached out to me and said, hey, we've got some gaming peripherals coming. I'm assuming that they're phone related. I don't know what they are. But like, it's interesting to see those types of companies being like,
those will probably be, they'll be cloud streaming type things, clips for controllers. And
that's what I'm guessing.
That's great.
So
actually, so on that note, I mean, so this ties into something we've been talking a lot about. Intel reached out to me right before the holiday started, and they said, "Hey, if we were going to send you like a MacBook Pro, like an M1 based MacBook Pro, and an Intel Evo based blah 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 whatever laptop, would you be interested in writing about that?" And I was like, "Well, maybe, but what does that mean? Like, what are you talking about?" So we kind of went back and forth. And the basic gist of it was like, they want me to kind of evaluate these things kind of head to head. And I was like, well, okay. I mean, yeah, of course I'm interested in this. But the thing is, like, I mean, I'm going to have to explain that you offered this to me, right? So, which of course they agreed to because I'm talking about it now. And they're like, oh yeah, no, of course. And I'm like, it's not like a foregone conclusion that you're going to win this comparison, right? I mean, and of course, the answer is of course. Like no company has ever come to me and said, "Look, we need you to make sure we win this one." But I mean, I just wanted to spell it out, and so that's something that will happen probably in January or something. But yeah, I mean, this stuff is interesting to everybody, right? And the thing you just mentioned from OtterBox, you don't know exactly what it is, but given the way the world is going, like, yeah, this is interesting stuff. I mean, so. I don't know. I can't review every single phone. It's not possible. And I certainly can't review every single computer. It's not possible either. But I don't mind doing it as much as I can. But I think I'm usually in about 75% over what I can do. You know what I mean? Like, I think I agree to too much.
It'd be, I wish, and maybe I'm thinking about this too naively, because there are a lot of differentiators. But I mean, we all know what the PCs are going to be next year. They're going to be Intel, 11th gen, probably 8 gigs to 16 gigs of RAM, variable resolution display.
Well, yes and no. But see, there's so here's the big thing. So PC world, like what's going on? Like some of the stuff that you're going to see at CES, right? Intel has these integrated graphics things that are now basically as good as dedicated graphics to a point. They're not going to beat out gaming PCs, but I have laptops that have come through my house this year that I would game on that are perfectly good, 1080p gaming, fantastic. These will be even better, and that's actually kind of interesting. There will be some more Windows 10 and ARM stuff. That's kind of interesting. There will be some Windows 10X stuff. That will absolutely be interesting, right? I mean, there's a lot of questions. There'll be Apple M2 or whatever they call it at some point. That will be interesting. But yeah, you're right. I mean, but if you look at like whatever Intel Gen, whatever it is, yeah, Dell will have 18 models, Lenovo will have 37 models, HP will have 137. I don't know, because HP is crazy. But yeah, it's here we go again.
I mean, it's just like smartphones, right? They're gonna have Snapdragon, whatever, 888 or whatever the number is. Right. It's going to be some screen size unless you buy an iPhone, and then you're getting the something bionic. Maybe they'll call it the Triptonic. I don't know this time. The Triptych from AAA. Who knows? It's
the Trip Kit.
Oh man, is it up to me now? I think
you're up.
So next question is, why don't more laptops have 1080p webcams?
Ask Apple.
Well, because the lid is like this thin. Ask Apple. Apple's using the same part they had like in 1996.
Yeah. Harvested from the Newton. They've just got like a bin of those things left over somewhere.
They're actually coming off of like second gen iPhones.
What if they were doing that? Like they built that like robot thing that like sucks the screen off, and like they're just taking those cameras and
it's like throwing the little webcams in like a bin so they can use them in Macs.
They're just going to start including the extra parts in your Apple box. Like you open it up, it's like, here's the webcam, like here's the other stuff. Could you recycle that for us?
It's like a tackle box full of extra little parts.
Can't include a charger, but here's a 30-pin cable from yesterday.
Right. That's a good question. I don't, it's funny. I don't think too much about the quality of webcams, but obviously given the way this year has gone, it's become a little bit more of a problem. The thing is, you've got a lot of pressure, and it comes from people like us who review products, but it comes from customers as well, where they're like, look, I want no bezels. I want, we want all these things. And they're like, and I want like a 1080p or a 4K camera on the front of the thing. And you're like, dude, Apple, you remember the Apple cylinder, what they call that thing? It was like a giant cylinder camera that sat on the top of the lid of the, you'd clip it on top, whatever the stupid thing was called. I mean, if you want serious optics, you need some space.
Yep.
This is the way it is. So
you need a bigger mirror.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the rule of cameras, right? Or I guess unless you get a mirrorless camera or whatever, or bigger sensor, not a. I was thinking like Dobson telescopes, where it's.
You want not that you want this on a laptop, but on a phone, like you want a telephoto, like optical telephoto capabilities. Yeah, you need a telescope, like inside of the camera, like inside of the phone. That's the way it is.
Is it Mahedi now?
Probably.
Yep, I'll go. So there's two questions about support. So one person asked, where do you go for information when Windows doesn't do what you expect? Anything other than Google? And then someone else asked, do you think the level of technical support has declined in recent times? And any idea why that might be?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As the resident old guy, I will tell you exactly why that is. I just watched I wish I could remember the name of this. It was actually pretty good. I watched a movie. I can't remember the name. It doesn't matter. Anyway,
is that old, folks? Was it in black and white?
That old. It was like last night. Wonder Woman. No, it was some old. It took place in the 1950s, and there was just some scenes where someone was like a telephone switchboard operator. Remember back in the day, the little cables, and someone would have a headset on, and that's how they did it. Mm-hmm. And eventually, these things get automated, and they get automated to make them more efficient, and they get automated to help that company save money, right? Because that person gets paid hourly and has a retirement fund and has health benefits and whatever. Mm-hmm. And eventually they automate that system and they save tons of money. And then we get to where the person you're talking about, why does technical support decline over time? Because they get rid of people. When you call for technical support, even calling for technical support is an old fashioned thing, right? But you go to a chat thing, the first thing you hit, whether you're calling or chatting online, is some AI thing, where it tries to solve they don't want you to have to talk to a person. They're trying to prevent that. And that's why. Because in the old days, you pick up a phone, you talk to a person. So this is, unfortunately, the reality of the situation is, in every case, they're just cutting people out of the loop because they want to save money. And it makes sense. I mean, but it's, that's why.
I was going to say they're just outsourcing a lot of it, right? They're like, go post in our forums.
By the way, outsourcing was the original
step
to saving money. It's like we have to have a person, but we have to pay them less. So that person has to be maybe in India or China or, wherever they were, in Malaysia, whatever. And then eventually it was like, well, I have an idea. Like Bob, the guy who got hired, got the promotion in the back of the room. He's like, I have an idea. Why don't we not even have a person?
Mm-hmm.
Save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Save all the money.
Just make some forums. We'll get some people and we'll call them MVPs, and they'll answer the questions for free. Right. And we'll ship them a laptop. Maybe they'll write about it on their blog.
Ship them a bag of discs. They can put them in a binder. And they'll feel like they're part of something.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of what it is. Like it's expensive to have people answering phones. So
yeah, yep.
What's next? My up or is it Paul? I think it's Paul.
Let me see. There's a good Brad question in here. There's a Brad question about Sonos, which I actually have a lot to say about. And there's also a Brad question about about Xbox. Something about headphones. I can't find.
I vaguely remember that one. Somebody was going to ask what headphones I use.
Yeah. What headphones do you use, Brian?
So I currently use the problem is this company got bought. I think was it Plantronics? They're called the Rig 800 XL. That's what Plantronics Rig 800 or LX is what it is. They're fantastic, but I would not recommend them right now because they use a little USB dongle thing. and the new generation headsets, I believe, that are coming out just connect directly to the Xbox. And that little dongle thing isn't great. I got to repair it every once in a while. So
when you say they connect directly to the Xbox, do you mean the controller?
No, well, they might. I think it's just directly to the same way the controller connects to the console.
It's USB. It's USB.
Yeah. Well, there's no dongle it plugs into the Xbox.
I'm sorry. It's wireless.
Yes.
It connects. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So that's why I'm looking forward to that Audis one that they said they're going to send me. Razer's supposed to be sending me one, but I haven't followed up with them. And then Corsair just came out with one. I don't know if they're shipping yet, but there's a sort of like a new generation of headsets coming out that I believe are going to work better because they're more natively kind of integrated into the OS or the console rather than being these dongles that plug in.
So we touched on this earlier, and it pains me to say this because it's even more profound now than it was when it first happened. But sometime in the past month or two, it kind of came up that I wasn't using headphones, and Brad was like, "You got to use headphones." And so, if you look at these little piece of garbage things that I'm wearing on my head, it's just like a $20 Sony over-the-ear, old-fashioned, wired headphone, right? But so it's a headphone jack, but it plugs directly into a Xbox controller too. So I actually use this. I have a second pair, but I use the same kind of headphone. And I got to tell you, like, this has changed my life. Like. The reason I never wear like if you look at the headphones Mehdi has on, like I find those kind of over the ear things to be uncomfortable, for me personally. And so I've always shied away from like gaming headphones because they tend to be those kind of things, like they're big. But I have been using these, and they don't have a microphone, so I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just playing. But you hear like footsteps behind you. You hear in some of the games I play, there's atmospheric effects. Like you go into a certain room in Call of Duty and the phone rings on the wall, or you can hear grass blowing in the wind or whatever. I mean, I hate to say this. I have like a positive thought about Brad almost every day because of this.
Good thing this is being recorded.
I know. It's weird. Like I don't know. I don't know.
Mehdi, what headset are you using right now?
It's Logitech G Pro X or something like that. Pro X2, yes, Pro X2, Logitech Pro X2. I first got like a Razer one as a birthday gift, and then I ended up breaking it after like a few weeks. And then I tried the HyperX one, and that didn't have good microphone, so I ended up with this one, and yeah, it's very good for now.
And is it wired?
Yeah, it is wired. So I actually got like the Sony XM4s like the other day.
And this is the noise canceling headset.
Those are really nice.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like that's like the most I've ever spent on a headphone. So. Oh
yeah. Right.
Yeah, I told you about this, and yeah, it's really sick. The only thing that annoys me is that the charging cable is like, I can't wait. Am I on the frame? Yeah, like this long.
For the Sony, but it's USB-C, right? So you could use any.
It is a USB-C, but like the one that comes with it is just one side is USB-A and then the other side is USB-C. It just doesn't make sense to me, but
So you have to put it like right up against wherever the charger is. Basically.
Yeah, right now it's literally on the floor next to the charger.
Right.
So I have to figure out a way to get a Type-C to Type-C one.
Yeah, the the Xbox Series X and S, the controller, the cable is it's got to be like 6 feet long. It's crazy how long it is. It's actually really long. Like it's notably long.
Yeah, I have the XM3s, and they're quite literally on my head, especially now that the kid is home from school from winter break, like 8 hours a day when I'm working, and they're fine. Like the thing is like they're light enough and they breathe enough, but the noise isolation, like I'll be sitting there typing and my wife will come up tapping me on the shoulder and like I not freak out, but like you genuinely can't hear them. They're fantastic.
That could be a bad
headphones.
thing if you're playing like a game and you're like super involved.
Mm-hmm. Is your martini about that, Paul?
Yeah, I gotta move on from this soon.
I was gonna say, yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left or something like that. If I've been out of alcohol for over an hour.
Oh God, we'll go get something else.
Well, I don't drink too much when I have to wake up and do stuff tomorrow. It's
Nice.
So who's got a question next? We've still got tons of them.
I know. I don't know. Let's see. Blah blah blah.
Well, one of them I like is I know, and this is called from Old IT Pro. I know pre-COVID there were often premium meetups at various conferences. Have any of you considered doing a roundtable style podcast or a virtual guest together with premium members? We have actually, but it's a logistics.
Yeah. I mean, this is it.
Yeah.
In a way, right? This has been a hard year. I mean, all of us work from home. Brad and I, at least, have kind of relied on these work trips to go and see the people that do what we do, and to see the people from Microsoft or whatever company's having the event. And what are we, about 10 months into the worst freaking year of our life? But yeah, so we've missed that, but it will happen again.
Yeah, I mean the meetups at the events. We try. Hopefully, Mehdi will come to one eventually.
Yeah. We've been trying to plot that for a while, but
we tried to get you to come to build.
We thought we were going to get him to the United States this year, and then COVID.
Yeah, that's what Qualcomm thought as well. But,
Yep. It will happen.
Who's got another one? I'm just scrolling the.
No Surface Pro 8 this year. What about next year? That's literally the question.
So there will be, I mean, it's already kind of leaked, so there's going to be Surface stuff next year. I don't think we'll have to wait too long.
Yep.
Any major design changes or anything?
So that's the problem. No. So obviously when Surface Pro X came out, you're like, oh my God, this is the future Surface Pro. This is awesome looking. I can't wait to get the Intel version. And everything we've seen so far about Surface Pro 8 suggests the same form factor.
So this is like the 5th generation of devices with the same exact design and the same.
Yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Bezels.
Yeah, this will be the 6th. So
yeah,
I know it's tough, and that's what Look, that's the thing. If you hadn't seen Surface Pro X, you could dream about a Surface Pro 7, but with smaller bezels, and you'd be like, that would be nice. But the problem is, even if they do that, which they're not, from what I hear, but they could make it a half an inch bigger screen, right? It would still be better. It's not going to happen.
We should call it the farmer's release, because they're definitely milking it.
Wow. Now, if I had said that, that's when Brad would have just faded to dark, and that would have been the end.
Yep, I was going to say I could hit the FRD outro, and that would be... That would be the end. There was one other, there were a lot of good questions, but there's one really interesting question about what the future of the IT Pro is going to be, which is a really good question. But I don't think, at least in larger companies, on-premises stuff is really ever going to go away big time. Because if you're a multi-billion-dollar company, you might have cloud stuff, but you will always have some sort of on-premises overflow capacity backup. Because how many times did Azure or Microsoft 365 go down? AWS went down a few weeks ago, and
how many times did Google go down in 1 week?
Yeah, So I would say get real familiar with like the Microsoft 365 dashboard. Like that's a really genuinely good skill you're going to want to have. But the old school networking stuff, I don't think that's going to go away holistically. I mean, maybe in some capacity, but there's always going to be on-premises data centers, in my opinion.
Yeah. One of the things that gets lost when you think, obviously there are big players like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, right? But then there's the rest of the world. And there were really big companies out there, Dropbox and Box and, whatever else. And these are like cloud services companies, but they're running on some cloud, And if these companies were running only on AWS and AWS went down, the entire internet would go down, right? And so I think the thing that doesn't get spoken about a lot is that most of these companies are multi-cloud companies. And so obviously that means AWS and Azure, right? Or AWS and Google, whatever Google has, nobody uses it, whatever. It doesn't matter. But there's a third cloud that few people talk about, and that's the thing you just brought up, which is, they also have their own infrastructure, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's in Bob's closet in some building at the company's headquarters, but companies also will have their own infrastructure, and that's part of their kind of hybrid approach to delivering their services. So, you'll always have especially the bigger companies. Some combination of those things.
Well, Mehedi, as we start to wrap this thing up, as your first major on-screen appearance on...
Your only major on-screen appearance, from what I can tell. Actually, you know what? Before we go, if you don't mind, Mehedi, I think you should speak a little bit about what happened with you this year at Qualcomm. Although maybe we should do, of course, we should do something with you separately. But if you don't mind, I mean, I think people are interested. Yeah, sure. I certainly am.
Yeah.
In what happened there.
Yeah, sure. I joined Qualcomm, as most of you guys know, as a software development engineer on the Windows on Snapdragon team. By the way, I remember you mentioned this, like Windows on ARM is basically Windows on Snapdragon, right? And I noticed when I was at Qualcomm, everyone referred to it as Windows on Snapdragon. Like I barely ever heard the phrase Windows on ARM. So that was kind of interesting. But in terms of actual things, I had a really sick team. I got to work on a couple of different projects, actually. They wanted me to work on this next gen experience, I'll say, because for Windows on ARM devices at first, but that had ended up having some like roadblocks in terms of getting like the drivers and stuff ready. So I couldn't work on that at first. So I ended up working on this other tool. It's for like system engineers. Basically what it does is you open it up and you'll see all these different thermal zones within the SoC. And then basically the app lets you stress test the system. So you'll be able to run like some GPU stuff, like some 3D rendering things and like the CPU, a bunch of different processes basically that stress the system as much as it can. And it will show you all the temperatures around the SoC changing in real time. And then you'll be able to, basically the idea is like the system engineers look at that data and try to identify like where the problem is, and then they'll go and use the same app to adjust the parameters for that. So basically what I did was when I came in, this app was very ugly.
Ugly.
It was
from a code perspective or from a UX perspective?
UX perspective. So basically, it was. So I'll just tell you. So basically, it was first the thing that Qualcomm just made for its own system engineers, and then I think some people from my team showed it to some people at Lenovo and HP, and they ended up liking the idea. So basically, they wanted to actually commercialize the product and make it actually look nice and usable, right? So that was my job. So I came in. Introduced all the design stuff that I do, made it look nice. I ended up like redoing. So like there was this one major component where you can see all like the CPU cores and the temperature for each of the zones. So there was like lots of different graphs in one screen. And when you're like stress testing the system, right? Let's say we're on an 8-core system, 7 of the cores go to like stress testing the system, and the app only has access to 1 core, along with like the other OS resources, right? So it doesn't really have much to work with. And the previous app, like before I got in, the app was like struggling to update the graphs and stuff because there was like so much things going on. So what I did was like I rebuilt the graphs from the ground up. And basically that reduced CPU usage by like 60%, and that and it was like so much smoother. So I ended up working on that. That was like my main...
I don't mean to interrupt, but can you tell us the name of this app, or is this not something you can talk about?
I'm not sure. So
don't risk it for...
We're not trying to get in trouble.
I might be.
But you can tell us privately later.
Exclusive.
You're right. Exclusive, Colin.
That was like my main project, and then I went back to working on the other next gen thing, and I ended up working on the design for it again and actually implementing a lot of the stuff. But unfortunately, like the driver still wasn't ready, so I ended up working on some open source stuff. So I actually ported a bunch of Electron apps to ARM64. Also tried porting like the Signal app for ARM64, but that was a very large app, and there were lots of processes and things that like modules that were missing support for ARM64, and they were just too complicated. And by that time, I was finishing up, so so I just stopped.
What would you? Did you get a lot of chance, like from a coding perspective, to understand what these things were being written? Like, was this a lot of C# or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Like with the first app, like the tuning app, it talked to the kernel in C++, obviously, but the app itself was written in C#.
Yeah.
Same with the other app. It was a UWP app, and so I had to write C# for that as well. And because this new app has to talk to the driver as well from a UWP app, so there was lots of discussions around how we would get around to doing that, and like keeping in mind with all the like the security limitations of UWP. So yeah, I was playing around with a lot of like C++ stuff. I don't know if anyone knows, but like there's this idea of marshalling where you have to convert the data types and stuff directly in memory. So I was doing a lot of that in the last few weeks, and that was very painful. But yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. Fascinating stuff, Maddie.
Yeah, very, very fun. Unfortunately, it was in the UK. That was the only problem.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Mehedi, you were supposed to go to San Diego.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic happened.
Yeah. That was like the main reason I chose it, because I had a front-end web one at Skyscanner in London, and if I was offered that in like this current position, I would have taken the Skyscanner one any day,
Yeah.
But obviously, because I thought,
but it was still worth doing, right? I mean,
yeah,
I would hope,
Qualcomm is a very good and well-known company,
Yeah.
So it's a very good name to have on my CV, and it was actually really fun to work in my team. Everyone was very supportive, because I literally went into this knowing basic C# and C++. So I learned a lot over like the 12 weeks that I worked there.
So before we leave, also I got to point out Mehedi's got a necklace thing going over the planet there, and I desperately want to know that planet is Uranus and not Saturn, because that would be the conversation starter. Because everyone's going to look at that and be like, "Oh, it's a nice,
I have no idea
Saturn
what it is.
you got there," and you're like,
You
"Oh,
have
no,
no
actually,
idea what it
it's
is.
Jupiter."
Put it up on the screen. We can.
Yeah.
No, it's.
I have no idea what it is. It's just a really cheap necklace that I found.
Oh, it just looks like Saturn.
So,
but there must be what, 3, 4 ringed planets in our.
I think all the gas giants are technically ringed
have
planets.
rings.
You just
so
can't.
You'd be like, oh no, it's Uranus, it's Neptune, or not Neptune. I don't know, one of those.
Well, we can all agree that if on this little show here, Paul is Uranus.
Yep, that's where it goes.
Well, gents, I think that about wraps it up for this, and we genuinely thank everybody who hung out in the chat room, who subscribed to Premium.
Wait, there is one more thing.
Oh, there is one more thing. Don't go.
There is
don't
one
go.
more thing.
No, don't close your browser.
Yeah. So it's funny because I know he's not here. So, in the build up to this, I'd asked if Nick, our tech guy, could get me lists of like the top pages and on the site, and top pages by like page views and comments and blah 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 and all this other stuff. And then I was like, you know what? I said, is there a way to find out who is the group of people that comment the most on the site? And we have we actually have probably 5 or 10 people who are a lot more active, are very active, maybe I should say, not more active, but are very active. But there's also this notion of like, and a lot of these guys are great, and a lot of these guys happen to be Premium guys as well. I mean, that's coincidental or not, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the people who are in Premium tend to elevate the conversation because they're paying to be here, and they're not interested necessarily in like shit posting and stupid stuff. I mean, there's a lot of, Brad knows more than anybody. I mean, every morning I get up and I do.
Welcome to FRD. Let me tell you who I hate today. No, I'm just
yeah, exactly. No, I mean, because I go through the comments, and then the next thing I do is I talk to Brad. I'm like ready to kill myself some days. Like it's awful, some days. But the one thing I've noticed going over the comments, like I've been going over, for the past year or so, is there are these guys, and I don't mean guys, people, there are these people, they're typically guys on the site, I guess, but who are like positive influences. Like they're having conversations, like they're elevating the conversation, like and there are many of them, right? But I was very interested to see but not surprised to see because I had an idea of who it might be. And I asked the guy, the group of people we work with, I said, I'd like to reward someone who I just feel like, in my mind, they are maybe one of the more active people on the site, and they're active in a positive way. And I don't mean to say that there aren't others doing this, because there are several of them, of course, but there is one who kind of stands out in this capacity. And I also don't want to violate his privacy, but his username on the site is Wright _IS, Mr. Wright, we will call him. And I asked if it would make sense if we could perhaps reward this individual for his contributions to the site. And so I just wanted to mention that we're going to be doing that, and we're going to be, I guess, awarding him, I guess is the way to say, rewarding him with a year of Thurrott Premium for his contributions to the site. So thank you, Mr. Wright, who I know is not watching, but hopefully he'll watch it on replay, and then he can comment on it. But I'll get in touch with him privately as well this week.
You going to go add that to his account there, Paul?
No, you were going to do that. but I will contact him. So
yes.
We'll both do a little bit of the work, and it will be fun.
So, well, to everybody else watching in the chat room and who have subscribed and hung out with us and tolerated us, we very much appreciate you here. This was great. And, we appreciate all the feedback and the help and the community that has been created here. And we'll catch all of you right back here on this website. That's https://thurrott.com.
I can almost read it.
Almost. So, all right. Wow. You know what? I've got no other outro, so we'll go with this one.
Wow.
That's a nice outro. I haven't seen that one before.
All right.
It's very clean.
Let me go turn off the stream. We will catch you later. You go play some Xbox.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys.
Bye. Thanks for coming, Maddie. We appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.